I was 28 years old when I first realized I was completely in love. Sunlight streaming through her parents' summer house, my reflection blinking back from its immaculate flooring. I came from a modest background, a home of warm meals and fresh laundry. She belonged to a sphere of sleek cars, charity galas, and well-off acquaintances who politely smiled but judged outsiders. On that day, none of those differences mattered. Her laughter, her bright eyes, her hopes for the future, they convinced me that love alone could bridge any gap. "Can you stay a bit longer?" she asked as we sat on a weather-worn park bench near her family's estate. Her name, Melissa, was carved into the bench's paint from her childhood. This was well before our engagement or the complications money would bring. Her father, Adrian, was a real estate magnate. Her mother, Marilyn, was a socialite who flew overseas to shop and hosted exclusive charity luncheons. Meanwhile, my father, Kyle, was a retired schoolteacher, and my mother, Anne, worked part-time as a baker. Luxury was never in our family's vocabulary, though we had enough to manage. "I can't," I told Melissa. "I have the early shift tomorrow at Jackson's Outdoor Supplies." She let out a cute little sigh, leaning her head against me. "I just hate it when you go." Her warmth made my scruffy shoes and outdated jeans feel unimportant. She loved me despite everything, or so I thought. Our romance deepened, but so did my awareness of her parents' guarded opinions. Marilyn, elegant and razor-sharp, could silence a room with a single look. Adrian, my future father-in-law, had a formidable presence. He always managed to turn even casual conversation into a veiled threat. They never hid their view that someone of ordinary standing would never truly be good enough for their daughter. "Congratulations," Adrian said the night Melissa and I announced our engagement. He gave me a handshake that felt disapproving. "We're happy for you both." "Thank you, sir," I mumbled. "Just call me Adrian." He gave a clipped nod. "We'll see how this all works out." The chill in his tone stuck with me, but I ignored it whenever Melissa's radiant smile lit up the room. Underneath it all, I sensed how her parents viewed me, an intruder into their perfectly curated world. Days after our announcement, Melissa and I visited her parents to choose a wedding date. Adrian and Marilyn led us into a pristine, sunlit sitting room. Adrian slid a folder across a gleaming mahogany table. "I need you to sign this," he said. Inside was a prenuptial agreement. It stated that any inheritance, trust funds, or large gifts from her side would belong solely to Melissa. Meanwhile, any major assets gained during our marriage, even lottery or game show winnings, would be considered shared property. The language about financial windfalls was especially precise, as if they'd imagined me hitting the jackpot someday. My name appeared throughout the document in stiff, formal legalese. "Is this really necessary?" I asked. "Standard procedure for families of means," Marilyn replied smoothly. "Surely you understand." I glanced at Melissa. She looked tense but still forced a small smile. "It's not that big a deal," she said. "They're just trying to protect our family's estate. It doesn't change how we feel about each other." I should have protested, but I loved her and wanted to keep the peace. I told myself that if we truly cared about one another, a few papers couldn't get between us. I scrawled my name across the signature lines, and as I did so, Adrian gave me an odd, triumphant curve of the lips. "Welcome to the family," he said quietly. Half a year later, we had a lavish wedding by Lake Newton. My parents were visibly overwhelmed by the grandeur. Imported flowers, a 5-tier cake, and live music. I'd never seen my father look so unsure of himself in public. Rich relatives asked him in condescending tones how I'd managed to meet his daughter in the first place. In pictures, the day looked perfect. Melissa in her sweeping lace gown, me in a rented tux, the sunlight dancing across our smiles. For a moment, I believed our love was strong enough to unite our two worlds forever. Soon after, we moved into a condo that Adrian called a gift, though in reality he'd only covered the down payment. I was expected to handle the mortgage each month, which he casually insisted upon. "You'll cover it, right, son?" I swallowed my irritation and said yes, quietly noting how he considered it his place more than mine. During our first few years of marriage, disagreements about finances and parental meddling emerged. Adrian and Marilyn often dropped by unannounced. sometimes rearranging furniture to brighten up the living space, or adding new decor I hadn't asked for. Melissa just shrugged it off. "They mean well," she'd say. If I complained, she brushed me aside. Everything reflected their preferences and control. I figured every couple has in-law issues and that eventually we'd figure it out. Then came the phone call that changed everything. One afternoon, Melissa rang me at work, voice trembling with excitement. "You won't believe this," she said. "I just hit the lottery." I nearly dropped my phone. "Wait, seriously?" "Yes, $9 million. I bought a ticket at a random gas station. It's real." My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe an early retirement, helping out both sets of parents, traveling, or even finally buying a place free of Adrian's control. But in the days that followed, Melissa became guarded about the money. She insisted we keep everything secret, especially from my family. She mentioned lawyers I'd never heard of, claiming they specialized in large estates. "Shouldn't I come with you?" I asked. "You'd feel out of place with them," she said dismissively. "I'll explain it later." Her behavior stung. Whenever I tried asking if we could pay off the condo or how the money would be handled, she brushed me off. "It's complicated." That was her new favorite phrase. One gray afternoon, I came home from a brutal double shift at Jackson's Outdoor Supplies. All I wanted was to collapse on the couch. Instead, I opened the door to find Melissa and her Aunt June rummaging through drawers, stuffing items into boxes. "What's going on?" I asked, heart pounding. Melissa straightened, eyes cold. "I'm filing for divorce. Pack whatever's yours. I want you out tonight." I was sure I'd misheard. "What are you talking about?" Aunt June, tall and sharp-faced, flicked me an impatient glare. "The condo is in Melissa's name," she said. "Her father handled the down payment. You have no right to remain here." My brain wouldn't process the words. The woman I loved, newly flush with millions, was kicking me out. "Wait, can't we discuss this?" I pleaded. Melissa's face was set in stone. "My lawyer will call you. Leave now, or I'll call the security guard." Feeling numb, I grabbed clothes, a toothbrush, and a few essentials. She treated me like a trespasser in my own home, the home I'd been helping pay for. I left in a daze and drove to my parents' place. My father opened the door, startled by my disheveled state and duffel bag. "What happened?" he asked. I managed to choke out, "She won a huge lottery," then filed for divorce and told me to leave. My mother gasped. My father's expression hardened. "Come inside," he said gruffly. That night, my parents sat me down in our old living room, horrified and furious. My mother kept calling my in-laws arrogant snobs. My father, though outraged, stayed composed. "You need a good lawyer," he said. "We have to see exactly what that prenup says about lottery winnings." I lowered my head. Her parents made me sign it. They must have spelled it all out. I'll probably walk away with nothing. He gave me a steady look. "We'll just have to read it carefully." 2 days later, we were in a small law office with my father's old friend, Mr. Jefferson, a seasoned family law attorney. I gave him the prenuptial agreement, explaining how it focused mainly on protecting inherited wealth from me. He flipped the pages and chuckled under his breath. "They've made a critical mistake," Mr. Jefferson said. My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" He tapped a paragraph. They specifically safeguarded her parents' money, trust funds, and any gifts she might receive from them. But they included a clause declaring that any windfall, lottery, game show prize, any major monetary gain during the marriage is shared. It hit me like a lightning bolt. Adrian and Marilyn were so anxious to shield family assets they forgot to carve out lottery wins for Melissa alone. She was stuck with a clause benefiting me. I felt relief crash into fury. She and her family had kicked me out, forgetting I wasn't legally powerless. Soon, rumors flew around. Melissa wasn't just celebrating her fortune alone, she had an old colleague in her life again. A friend mentioned seeing her dining with a man named Victor, a coworker she'd been close to at her former job. The suggestion she'd been cheating made me feel sick. But I lacked proof and was already drowning in enough heartbreak without seeking more. Adrian, my father-in-law, wasted no time threatening me. One morning, I got a call from a private number. When I picked up, his voice oozed condescension. "Listen carefully," he said. "You'll never see a dime of that lottery. I know every judge in Lakewood. You'll be destroyed by legal fees if you try to fight. Save yourself the trouble." I hung up, hands trembling. Mr. Jefferson had warned me this would happen. Following his advice, I wrote everything down and saved the voicemail in case we needed proof of intimidation. It didn't stop there. Melissa's mother, Marilyn, ambushed me outside my parents' house. She held out a piece of paper with a number. That sum wouldn't even cover the mortgage payments I'd contributed. "Accept this and move on," she said. "It's far more than you deserve." I snorted. "This has to be a joke." She looked genuinely offended. "For a man of your background, it's generous. Why drag this to court?" I tore the paper in two. "No deal," I said. "I'll see you in court." She stiffened. "Ungrateful," she hissed, marching to her car and roaring off. Over the next few weeks, more rumors cropped up of Melissa and Victor partying around town, staying at upscale hotels, and dining in expensive restaurants. My mother asked if I'd use that in court. Mr. Jefferson shook his head. "We're in a no-fault state. Her cheating won't necessarily grant you a bigger share. The important point is the prenup." So we pressed forward. Our legal team asked the court to freeze the lottery funds while the divorce was pending. Adrian's lawyers tried to block it and failed. Both sides prepared for a tough legal battle. At a preliminary hearing, I saw Melissa for the first time in weeks. She showed up with her parents, flanked by 2 attorneys. When proceedings ended, I stepped forward. She paused, arms crossed. "How long?" I demanded, voice low. "How long have you been seeing Victor?" She flushed. "Not your concern." I gritted my teeth. "So you were sleeping with him while I worked overtime shifts? Is that it?" Her lips thinned. "You have no idea what it's like, suffocating under your mediocrity. Victor's actually interesting. Successful. I was done waiting for you to catch up." My mouth went dry. "So that's it? You used me as a stepping stone?" She shrugged. "You just don't belong in my life. Now, if you'll excuse me, I won't walk away empty-handed," I interrupted. "Your parents wanted a fight. They've got one." Her eyes narrowed to slits. "A fight? Fine. See you in court." She whirled away, leaving me standing in the corridor, trembling with a mix of pain and anger. Adrian wasn't finished trying to intimidate me. He phoned my boss at Jackson's Outdoor Supplies, implying the store would lose expansion opportunities if they didn't fire me. Thankfully, my boss, who'd known me for years, refused to cave. Within hours, I received an irate text from Melissa. "You can't keep mooching. Grow up and accept that nobody wants you here. My father's done playing." I forwarded it straight to Mr. Jefferson. He told me, "Document it. Don't stoop to their level." So I bit my tongue and pressed on. Despite the stress, I knew the law was on my side. Their own prenuptial documents spelled out that lottery gains during marriage were marital property, and that was an ironclad clause. The final court date approached like a storm on the horizon, dark and swirling with tension. A week before the hearing, I got a late call from Melissa. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Talk about what?" I responded warily. She exhaled shakily. "I don't want a messy court battle. Let's settle privately. We can keep it quiet, sign NDAs, and you'll still get money. Just not the full amount you and your lawyer want. My parents don't want the scandal." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Scandal? You and your family kicked me out with no warning. Now you're worried about your precious image? Define fair." Her voice hardened. "Don't be a fool. If you make enemies out of my parents, you'll never work in Lakewood again, or any city in a 300-mile radius. Is that what you want?" Fear fluttered in me, but I forced myself to stand firm. "I'll take my chances," I said, and ended the call. My hand shook with adrenaline, but I was done letting them push me around. The morning of the final hearing arrived, the sky drab with rain clouds. I wore my best charcoal suit. Nothing designer, but decent. My mother fussed over my tie at the door, whispering, "We believe in you." I met Mr. Jefferson outside the courthouse. We exchanged a solemn nod and stepped inside. In the hallway, I spotted Melissa on a bench, impeccably dressed in a tailored skirt and jacket ensemble. Adrian stood behind her with crossed arms, while Marilyn hovered, glaring at me. They had a small army of lawyers rifling through briefcases. Melissa shot me an icy look and then spun away, flipping her hair dismissively. The entire scene felt surreal, like I was the villain in the story she'd told them. "Let's go," Mr. Jefferson murmured. The courtroom was chilly, with rows of worn wooden benches facing the judge's imposing desk. I took my seat at the petitioner's table, Mr. Jefferson by my side. Melissa and her legal team spread out at the respondent's table. After the bailiff's instructions, the judge, a stern-looking woman with silver-streaked hair, called the session to order. Her attorneys repeated their same narrative. The lottery ticket was exclusively Melissa's, purchased with her personal funds. They wanted the court to rule that the money was never intended to be shared. Mr. Jefferson calmly replied, "We have bank statements showing the joint account paid for the ticket. Moreover, the prenuptial agreement explicitly names lottery winnings as marital property. We argue it's not ambiguous." The judge looked intrigued, raising an eyebrow as Mr. Jefferson presented documents. I saw Adrian's expression darken. Finally, Melissa was called upon. She sounded tense. "I never meant to hurt him," she said. "But my parents were terrified that opportunists might come after me. That's why I acted so rashly. I'm sorry if it seemed sudden." I gritted my teeth at that understatement. She'd thrown me out with no warning. The judge peered at her over rimless glasses but said nothing. Then, Adrian's attorney tried a new angle, painting me as a freeloader who'd contributed almost nothing to the household. That word stabbed at my pride. Unfazed, Mr. Jefferson showed receipts for mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, thousands of dollars I had put forth over the years. The back and forth continued all afternoon, tension brimming in the air. Eventually, the judge rapped her gavel lightly. "I want quiet in this courtroom," she said firmly. Attorneys stopped scribbling notes. Lifting the prenuptial agreement, she gave a wry half-smile. "Having reviewed the language," she said, "I find that any financial windfall occurring during the marriage, including lottery winnings, constitutes marital property subject to equitable distribution. There is no ambiguity." Silence descended. Adrian's face went crimson. Melissa looked pale. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "the petitioner was evicted from the condominium with no formal notice or legal process despite making ongoing payments. This factor weighs against the respondent's position." I noticed Mr. Jefferson's quick, satisfied smile. The judge then summarized, "Accordingly, the lottery is a joint asset, and an equitable share shall be awarded to the petitioner. Also, the petitioner is entitled to compensation for his mortgage and other contributions." With that, she hit her gavel once more. Court adjourned. The hush that followed felt thunderous. After the judge left, the courtroom erupted in low chatter. Adrian stormed up to me, shaking with rage. "This isn't over," he hissed. "We can still appeal." I squared my shoulders. "It's over." The judge made her ruling. Melissa hovered behind him, arms crossed, silent tears in her eyes, anger flashing within them. Marilyn whispered frantically to her attorneys. Suddenly, Melissa shrieked my name and hurled herself at me, looking unhinged. "You worthless scum!" She tried swinging her purse at my shoulder. I staggered back, the bailiff and a security guard rushing over. "Stop it!" the guard barked. Melissa, sobbing in fury, yelled, "He's stealing my money! How can you let him do this? Do you know who my father is?" The guard restrained her, face grim. "Ma'am, calm down. This is contempt." Her father looked stunned. "Melissa, what are you doing?" She spat accusations. "He's a parasite who tricked everyone into thinking he's decent. A gold-digging liar." I stood, chest pounding, while Mr. Jefferson stepped between us. The security officer and bailiff pulled her away, dragging her toward the hall leading to the judge's chambers. Adrian hurried after them, demanding Melissa be released. My mother watched in shock, tears in her eyes. Mr. Jefferson exhaled. "I didn't see that coming." I swallowed hard. She completely lost control. We waited on a bench outside. Eventually, a bailiff came over and told me the judge had found Melissa in contempt for the outburst and the attempted assault. She had to pay a hefty fine and would remain in temporary custody until processed. They asked if I wanted to file a separate assault charge, but after a moment's hesitation, I said no. My anger was immense, but pressing charges for assault would only drag this out further. The contempt punishment was enough. Days later, Melissa was quietly released. Her lawyers raced to finalize the settlement so she could avoid more embarrassment. Word of her meltdown had already leaked to the local press, and even minor tabloids showed interest. A week after that, I arrived at Mr. Jefferson's office for the last round of signatures. Adrian glared at me. Melissa sat stiffly, avoiding my eyes. Marilyn loomed behind them, expression pinched. They had a check ready, a substantial payout from the $9 million. They also granted me complete release from the condo, compensating me for what I'd already contributed. I signed the papers. Mr. Jefferson reviewed them, nodding in approval. My ex-wife pursed her lips, not even glancing my way. Adrian slid the check over. "Take it," he said bitterly. "I hope you're satisfied." I cast a brief look around the table. Melissa stared into space, hollow. Her mother whispered angrily under her breath. The attorneys exchanged final confirmations. I signed the last page, and that was that. No goodbyes or well wishes. Just a silent conclusion to a broken marriage.